Okay, so this is the review for the Unit 10 test, specifically on graphing. So this is everything that we did after the first quiz. If I were you, I would pause this video, try problem 1, and then play it to check it. Remember, if you're just going to do that, that you can just simply fast forward to the end of the problem and check your answer to see if it matches, and if not, rewind and watch the video for an explanation. If you want to watch the video all the way through to have it explained, that's fine as well. But I do think trying it on your own and then checking it would probably be more valuable. All right, so in these first two problems on page 1, it's asking you to describe the look of the graph, which means we need to look at end behavior, right? So when it says describe the look, we're going to talk about end behavior. We're going to talk about x-intercepts, y-intercepts, maximums and minimums. And then we're going to use that information to go ahead and graph this. So, first of all, starting out with the end behavior. Remember that in order to describe what's happening at the end behavior, we look at two different things. The first thing that we look at is the exponent. In this case, our exponent is 3, or our degree is 3. So since we have an odd degree, that means that the end behavior is going to be in two different directions. One end will go up, one end will go down. Okay, so opposite directions. Then we look at the lead coefficient. In this case, the lead coefficient is negative. So we have a negative lead, which means, since we're talking about opposite directions, I really think about it as slope. Like the slope is negative. So if I were having a negative slope, that means it would start up and end down. So I know that that's the general look of the graph. It's going to start over here and end at the bottom on the right-hand side. Once I've described end behavior, I would do the y-intercepts next, because to me the y-intercept is the easiest. Because really, remember, the opposite variable is 0. So for a y-intercept, the x is 0. So I can just put 0 in place of all the x's to find out the y. So negative 0 to the third plus 11 0 squared minus 39 times 0 plus 45. Well, these zeros make those terms cancel out, so y equals 45, which means my y-intercept is at 0, 45. And I can even go ahead and plotting that on the graph would be a little bit difficult, so I'm not even going to worry about plotting that because I can't, because it goes way off the graph. So after y-intercepts, the next thing we look at are x-intercepts. And remember, for the x-intercept, that means the y is 0. And remember, f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. So we would have 0 equals negative x to the third plus 11x squared minus 39x plus 45. Now you could go ahead and try and factor that by grouping, but I can tell you right now grouping would not work. So I'm going to go to my graphing calculator and we're going to type this in. So negative x to the third plus 11x squared minus 39x plus 45. And then we can graph it. And so it looks like I have a 0 happening here and a 0 happening here. So let's go ahead and try to find one of them. So calculate the 0. I'm going to go for this one. So I'm going to scroll over. Now I'm to the left of that one. And now, oops, I exited out of that. So go to the left. Oops. Trying to go too fast. So here's the intercept that I'm trying to find. So right now I know I'm to the left of it, and then I can go to the right of it, which gives me 5, 0. So I know x equals 5 is a solution, and that allows me to do synthetic division. So 5, so we have negative 1 is x cubed, 11 is x squared, negative 39 is x, and 45. So then we can bring our negative 1 down, which would give me negative 5, which is 6, which gives me 30, and negative 9. And negative 9 times 5 is negative 45, so we did get 0. Then I need to find my other x-intercepts. So right now, this is the same as saying negative x squared plus 6x minus 9 equals 0. Now, I would go ahead and factor this, but remember, because my first term is negative, that means the first thing I need to do is take out a negative as my GCF. So we'd have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. And we can factor this. What multiplies to the last and adds to the middle would be negative 3 and negative 3. So x minus 3 equals 0 with the negative, which means this is x equals 3, and this is x equals 3 as well. So when I look at these, my x-intercept, my first x-intercept is 5, 0. It has a multiplicity of 1, right, which means that it will cross at that point. Then x equals 3 happens twice, so 3, 0 has a multiplicity of 2, which means that it bounces at that point. So we have 5, 0 as a point, 3, 0 as a point. It's going to cross at 5, 0, but it's bouncing here. So I know here we're going to have a bounce happening. And I know it's coming from this direction because we're starting up high, so it'll bounce, and then it'll cross going this direction. But to figure out here is going to be the important part. So I need to figure out what's happening at that spot. And that also I can tell by looking at my calculator because there's a maximum here. So then I need to go ahead and calculate that maximum. So we'll go to calculate, and I'll go to the left of what I think the maximum is. That's the maximum, so I go to the right, press enter, and I get 4.3 and 1.2. So my max value is at 4.3, 1.2. So 4.3 is a little bit more, 1.2 is here-ish. So I know that this will go up to here at the maximum point and come back down. So it looks something like this. And I know this should be heading more straight up because it's not going to cross until 43, and then if I compare it to the graph here, we know that it matches. Okay? So now we're going to go ahead and do that same thing for the second one. So again, to talk about our end behavior, we have an even exponent. We have a positive lead coefficient. So that tells me for my end behavior, the even degree means that it's going to head in the same direction at the end. And since my lead is positive, that tells me that positive sounds like up, so they will both end up. So I know we'll be starting from the up direction and ending in the up direction. Then we need to go ahead and find our y-intercept. Right? And remember, for our y-intercept, that means x equals 0, so I would plug in 0 in each of these spots. So 0 to the fourth is 0, 0, 0. That would all cancel out, giving me y equals negative 64. So I have a y-intercept at 0, negative 64. So 0, negative 64 would be about here, so that's that point. Then again, we also have to do our x-intercepts, which remember means y equals 0. So we would have 0 equals x to the fourth minus 4x cubed minus 12x squared plus 64x minus 64. Again, this is not one, especially since there's 5 terms, I know I'm not going to be able to factor it. So I'm going to clear it out. X to the fourth minus 4x to the third minus 12x squared plus 64x minus 64, enter, and we can go ahead and graph that. Okay, so it looks like I have an x-intercept here, here, and here, so let's find that one first. So calculate the 0. I'm going to try to find this 0 over here. So my x is at 0, and I need to get over towards like -3, 4, or 5. -3, -4, oops, -5. So I can tell right now this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go to -5 or -6 here, and I know I'd be on the left side of it. And if you see, my arrow did pop up to the left side of it. Now over here would be like -2 or 3. So if I go to like -2 on the x, I definitely know I'm on the left side of it, even though I can't see it. And so this point is -4, and then it says 3e to the -11. That's scientific notation. Basically, it's telling you that it's 0. So that tells me right now that I have x equals -4 as a solution. So we can go ahead and do synthetic division with it. So 1, -4, -12, 64, -64. Okay, so we can go ahead and bring that down to get 1. -4 would combine to give me -8. So that's 32, which gives me 20. And -80, which gives me -16. That gets me 64, so I did have a remainder of 0. I can tell you again that because this still has 4 terms, I'm probably not going to be able to factor it. So instead of trying to factor it and writing it out, I'm just going to find my next 0. So this looks as good as a place as any to try. So let's do this one. I'm going to scroll to the left, and hopefully my cursor will pop up. Oh, there it is. I'm going for this one, so now I'm going to go to this direction. So here's a 0. To the left, to the right, enter. Gives me 4. So x equals 4 is my other 0. So now on this one, the 1, -8, 20, -16. Put the 4 out, so 1, 4, -4, -16, 4, 16, so that does 0 out. So now we have only 3 terms, so x squared minus 4x minus 4 is actually something that we can go ahead and factor, right? So what multiplies to -4 and adds to -4 would be x minus 2, x minus 2. So that gives me x equals 2 and x equals 2. So I have my degree is 4. I have 4 solutions. I have a solution at -4, 0, 4, 0, and these both only happen once, so it's going to cross. But 2, 0 has a multiplicity of 2, so since it's an even multiplicity, it will bounce at that point. So at -4, 0, we're going to cross. At 4, 0, we're going to cross. And at 2, 0, we're going to bounce. So I know we're going to come down here. Something's going to happen here. I'm going to bounce back up, and then I'm going to end here. All right, so now we have to find maximums and minimums. Well, right now, I know that this is a maximum. I know that there has to be a minimum here because it comes back up. So let's start out finding this minimum. So second, calculate minimum. So I have to be to the left of it. So there's to the left, to the right, 3.3 and, well, 3.37. So we'll say 3.4, comma, negative 8.7, and this is a minimum. So 3.4, comma, negative 8.7 would be kind of here-ish. So here's my first section of that, right, before I come back down. And then I know it's going to cross here, right? But then I have to figure out what's happening down here. So I have to find the minimum that's happening here-ish. So we'll have to, again, second, calculate minimum. I know my minimum's going to be over here, so if I get to this side, I'd be to the left of it, so I need to be at like the -5-ish again. So -5-ish, and then I can go to the right of it. And it should pop up over here somewhere. There it is. Press enter. And this is negative 2.4, comma, negative 198. So 2.4 is here-ish, 198 is in this general direction, so we're coming all the way down and coming all the way back up. Alright, so you'll need to go to the next video for the next two explanations.